Good morning. You may all sit down.
Assembly.
If a kid had been knocked over and was in hospital, there'd be an assembly. It usually involved a near-death experience or urinating in the bushes near Mrs Wiggins at 40A or something. It was a way of just telling people something bad has happened. That's why we've gathered you all together.
A teacher died in our school, a drama teacher, and we all were called in and we all had an assembly and we were sitting there, and this drama teacher died. She'd been found dead the day before. It's terrible news, and the headmaster came out and said, we've got some terrible news. Our drama teacher thingy has sadly died. And his kid shouted out, Tristan his name was, he shouted out, are you sure she's not acting, sir? And it was the best thing I'd ever heard, and no one could quite believe it, and I think even the teachers found it quite funny, but they couldn't say anything.
Our headmaster called an emergency assembly just for the boys, and our headmaster was just apoplectic with rage. He was just beside himself with rage. But the thing is, no one knew what he was talking about because he kept using all these big long words and medical terms. So what he said was, there is a boy here. The culprit knows who they are. Who last night defecated on the toilet floor. And we were like, what the fuck does defecated mean? And some kid said, it's a type of coffee. What, someone sprayed coffee on the toilet floor? What the fuck was he so angry about that for?
We had a reverend who was like really, thought he was hip and would do things like, he start his sermon by going, neighbours, everybody needs good neighbours, just a little understanding. We can find the perfect plan. Those are the lyrics to our popular television show, Neighbours. But in many ways, they say a lot about the world we live in.
And we had a teacher once, the art teacher, and she was just such a Bible basher. And there was an overhead projector, and there was all like these little blocks. And she went, "What's this?" I don't know. And then she put 2 pieces of paper there, and it spelt Jesus. And she said, "You've got to go looking for Jesus to find it." And I'm like, oh God.
The headmaster had an obsession with litter, and he became aware that the reason there were so many crisp packets in the school playground lying around was not because people weren't chucking them in bins, but because crisp packets were actually blowing out of the bins, because you put them in the bin, but the wind would come up and they'd waft away, and this was genuinely happening. And he became so incensed that we were obviously failing to scrunch up these crisp packets so they'd stay in the bins and wouldn't blow out, that he brought one into assembly to demonstrate for us. And he took the crisp packet, held it out in front of us, scrunched it up, put it on the desk, there. And then there was this sort of slow-burning laugh across the whole room as the crisp packet unscrunched in front of him. And he honestly, he didn't know what to do. He basically had to deny it was happening at all. It was like, it was like one of Stalin's generals. You didn't speak of it, but it was there, and by, 40 seconds later, it was a flat crisp packet in front of him. I think a few months later, he tried to ban crisps.
Do you enjoy being the class clown?
Ethiopians.
Unfortunately, nothing at school was beyond ridicule. And when Live Aid happened and everyone was at school, you look back on it now, it rips your heart open. Back then, you were wondering why fat kids were getting food.
I did much, not much, to help the Ethiopian children. I did the 24-hour fast. You could only drink fluids. Well, fluids to me is soup, that's a fluid. Chicken you can have, because chicken doesn't really count. Or anything that flies, I'd say, doesn't really count. And sometimes crisps, but only if they're ready salty, because the flavouring is actually what makes it count.
All I remember about Ethiopia is just a series of jokes that were like not funny, but because like we thought they were really offensive, they were considered like, really? What's the fastest thing on earth? An Ethiopian with a dinner ticket. Factually wrong, because I don't think they operate dinner tickets in Ethiopia. I don't think that's a way that you get meals out there. And B, he's starving. He's still not going to be that fast. A cheetah's still going to be faster, because that is the fastest thing on earth. But, at the time it wasn't like, let's race. We didn't have an Ethiopian, we didn't have a cheetah. We couldn't have orchestrated that race.
We used to have a metalwork teacher who was one of them sort of more in touch with the kids type of teacher. And he wrote this song and went on local sort of TV, regional news, and sung it on there, and then they pressed the records, and it came out, I think it got to about number 70-something in charts or something like that.
Boys would, Ethiopians, boys would push out their bellies really big and go, "Oh, I'm an Ethiopian," and just like make their stomachs really big, which was very sensitive.
Oh Lord, my belly's full, and I can eat whatever I like. I can't imagine how your daughter feels tonight. I wish I could have saved her life. Magic.
Put it away or have it confiscated.
Masturbation.
Sometimes I feel sexually excited. When this happens, my penis goes hard, and I get nice feelings when I touch it.
There was a story about a boy, he was Spanish, and there was a story about the fact that he had apparently wanked in the library. And at the time, I remember just not believing it at all. Like, that would never happen. That's like aliens coming down and landing. But looking back, obviously, he probably just did wank in the library. Probably most boys wanked in the library. I was probably the only one too square to go into the library and do what I wanted to do and wank over that photography book with the picture of a girl in a bikini.
First, I go somewhere private to do this, where no one will see me. I'll go to my bedroom.
Boys masturbate, but in the land of school, girls don't masturbate. They might accidentally brush their hand across their genitals, but that would be accidental in all ways. That wouldn't be sort of intentional. If you played truth, and there would be the dilemma of the girl of, it would be asked, do you masturbate? Like, do I tell the truth? That's the kind of point of the game.
How to wank was something that went around for a while, because it wasn't immediately obvious how you would do that. And I had a very naive friend who had heard that any sort of friction would do the job. He said, yeah, it's true. Your penis is so sensitive that you could just put it on a radiator and you'll come. That was a theory at the time, which I'm pleased to say I did not try.
2 words, Dempsey and Makepeace. Every Friday night, 9 o'clock, suddenly parents would go, "Oh, you love this show, why don't you watch it with us?" I'm getting tired, I think I'll go up to bed now and let's go to sleep, got some homework to do, stuff like that.
Well, you certainly know how to show a girl a good time.
And Janet Ellis. When she broke her hip that time, that parachute jump.
When I first discovered masturbation, I thought, this is it. I mean, that is me for the next 3 years. Wave goodbye to Mum and Dad. And it pretty much turned out to be a conservative estimate.
The worst feeling about homework was Sunday night, because you'd be sitting there watching telly on a Sunday evening, knowing that you've got some massive essay to write about Henry VIII, and you just don't want to do it. And the Antiques Roadshow is on, and you're glued to that. Then it's Songs of Praise. Then it's Last of the Summer Wine, which, when you've got an essay to do, is piss funny.
Paddy McGuinness will be warming up for a laugh in Funny Cuts over in E4 at 10:15. Transmission with T-Mobile hits the streets of Belfast tonight. Join Steve Jones and Lauren Laverne at 11:40. Next though, Big Brother's having a laugh.